So there was a summer where I met a boy at Pride and we ended up dancing through the whole weekend together. I was in love. I thought he was so sexy and the fact that he could dance, it was the best. And of course, being on drugs and high all weekend just amplified everything I was feeling. Over the next few weeks, we hung out a lot. There was parties, late nights. This time he got hit by a car and I had to take care of him. I felt like this is everything. This is love. But there were moments where my inner voice would whisper, I'm not sure this is good for you. Like, I remember trying to have a deeper conversation with him and asking about his feelings, and he just shut down. I'm such an emotional person that dynamic just does not work. And now I know I would walk away from that. But back then, I ignored it. I was so wrapped up in those euphoric feelings. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I wanted to be around him constantly. It was so passionate and intense. I didn't want to let that feeling go. At one point, he went away for a week, and as soon as I said goodbye, this anxiety came up. Everything just felt dimmer. It reminded me of that feeling when I want to have a drink because I'm uncomfortable, and I realized, oh, fuck, I'm addicted to him. I didn't stop seeing him, and before we hit the 2-month mark, he broke up with me. And I remember even trying to say I love you right before that because I knew that he was about to end things, and that's how much I was trying to desperately hang on to it. It took me a long time to move past that relationship. I still wanted that drug back. I wanted that Pride weekend feeling again. That's how strong the addiction was. I now know that I can fall into that with guys, where they become my whole world because they're my only source of joy and connection. And even if we're not really compatible, I'll start to change myself so they'll stay. But I can honestly say I'm grateful for that guy because I learned something huge. I kept thinking, whatever spark he had that lit me up, maybe I can just be that for myself. We weren't compatible long term, but he had this creative spark I loved. So I decided to embody that myself, to dance, to perform. That's literally how I started everything I'm doing now. And it also just helped me move through the withdrawal of losing him. And it also taught me that I can be the source of joy and connection for myself. In this episode, I chat with Gary, a facilitator who works with queer men in London. We dive into limerence, what it is, and how it shapes our feelings and behaviors in relationships. We also talk about the need for community and about learning to actually feel those hard feelings so we can have the intimacy we really want. This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Gary is a therapist, embodiment facilitator, somatic body worker, award-winning music maker, conscious DJ, and writer. He's the creator of Pleasure Medicine, a bi-weekly connection workshop and ecstatic dance for gay men in London that blends conscious movement with embodied connection. With over a decade of experience as a facilitator and therapist, Gary is devoted to helping gay men unlock their pleasure centers, soften shame, and rediscover joy, intimacy, and sensuality through dance, touch, and celebratory sexuality. He is a guest columnist for queer culture magazines and writes personal essays, opinion pieces, and cultural reflections, always from the perspective of being in the waters with the reader, trying to work it all out together. Hey, Gary.
Hey, that sounds so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. The only reason I love somebody reading that out for me is because I can never remember all of the A things that I do in my life. And I miss loads of shit out. So I think it's just great to have it written out and read for me to go, oh, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is amazing all the stuff that you do. And we were just talking about how you started in a theater background, but I'm curious to know what was the transition and how did you get into all this work?
Wow. Yeah, that is such a good question. And I really have to backtrack over like, how did I get here? So I started off life as a musician. So I started learning classical flute and piano at school. And I grew up on a very rough working class council estate in the 80s in East London. So, from very underprivileged sort of circumstances. And I started learning music. And, the little gay that I was, I chose the flute. And apparently I got good very quick at that. And I went on to go and get scholarships to some of the world's best music colleges and conservatoires for classical music. So I sort of took this different trajectory from this sort of working class life as a kid. And yeah, I had a career as a musician in classical music, and then went into musical theatre as a performer. And then I got stage fright and really, really serious stage fright, panic attacks. To cut a long story short, I went to see a hypnotherapist who cured me very quickly, and I became
Mm.
obsessed with the mind and the body connection and what was possible with this work that she had done with me, and it completely changed the direction of my life. So I went to train as a therapist originally. Um,
Before you get too far into the story, what I'm curious about that. Was there something that happened in the hypnosis that you were like it shifted, or did you just wake out of the hypnosis and you're like, wow, I don't have that fear anymore?
yeah, basically, I woke up out of the hypnosis and I was like, I don't think I have panic attack or stage fright anymore.
Mm. Yeah.
And I started performing again and I was fine. And it was
Mm-hmm.
so sort of miraculous because it was really bad. I had it for about 6 months. I couldn't leave my house where I
Mm.
lived. I was agoraphobic. I couldn't breathe properly for months on end. I wasn't sleeping. My skin was like translucent pale just
Mm.
because of the adrenaline and this panic. So it was
Mm-hmm.
really bad. It wasn't just a bit of nerves. It was like debilitating and just
Mm-hmm.
ruined my life. And then she fixed me in like 2 sessions. And I just
Wow.
was like, what the actual fuck what happened there? Like, how could
Mm-hmm.
you make that better so quickly? And it sort of sparked this obsession really with who I thought I was, the functions and the patterns and the loops that I found myself in, what I would call my personality. Was that really real? And yeah, just started me questioning so much of who I was and the patterns that I had in my life. And then I
Mm-hmm.
went on to train in various, as you will know, probably, and lots of other people listening, you start to just get fascinated with every area of this thing called healing and transformation and psychology, and then the somatic side came in and the embodiment side. And so I went on to train as a kinesiologist, which is sort of a naturopathic approach to health and well-being. And then I trained in something called mind body therapy, and then I moved into the sexological bodywork side of things and trained as a somatic sexologist and various other sexy things.
Mm-hmm.
And the sex stuff came in when I sort of came to a point in my life where I realized that I had a problematic, compulsive relationship with sex, which at the time I called sex addiction. And
Mm-hmm.
for some purposes, publicly, online, in media, I will use the term addiction just to make it accessible for people. But I actually don't see it as an addiction, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
approach it as an addiction with clients. But if I sometimes use the word just to make it more understandable to
Yeah.
the sort of like person coming into this world, that they could go, oh yeah, I resonate with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I call it a problematic compulsive relationship with sex rather than an
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah, it's good that you say that because everyone always brings this up about like I'll ask, "Oh, how often do you masturbate?" And everyone is always like, "Probably too much." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's like figure out if it's like too much." And as someone who like I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, and so like I think what that helped me give me is this language to be able to understand what addiction really is. And so sometimes if I'm like, "Yeah, I jerk off every day," sometimes I have to be like put a limit to it because I just am like, oh, am I just bored and jerking off like 5 times a day or something? But I will also be like, well, what are the consequences of that? You know, I'm not missing work or something. I'm just jerking off because I'm bored. Okay, well, it's not so bad. I'm okay with those side effects of it, right? Unless you're like, I'm jerking off and avoiding connection and intimacy with another person to jerk off. Maybe I'm not okay with that, right? And it's so individual to every person, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's the very first set of questions that I'll ask a client that thinks they have porn addiction or sex addiction
Yeah.
or something. And it's like, okay, well, let's talk about what it looks like in your life. And you get to decide if it's problematic or not. You get to
Mm-hmm.
decide, like how you want to shift and change that. So, it's really interesting world to look at, like this compulsive relationship with things like masturbation, porn, and sex, because it's really in the language that we're using. So when people say I use porn, it's very linked to sort of drugs, right? So I use,
Mm-hmm.
so I use.
Yeah.
So I will get that language shifted in a client really quickly, and how I approach it is that we're working with porn, right?
Mm, yeah.
That then your porn can become a practice. And again, like,
Mhm.
you get to decide, do you want porn in your life or do you want it out of your life?
Mhm.
Porn in and of itself is not, it's morally neutral. Like, it's not good or bad.
Mhm.
It's our relationship with it, isn't it? So loads of guys will come to me saying, "Oh, I've got porn addiction. I want to stop using porn," and that usually fails pretty quickly because
Mhm.
actually the way that you're working with porn is actually really giving you something. It's fulfilling a need, right? It's pointing to a desire or a want or a need that you have in your sexual life, and actually, it sometimes is not even sexual. And so start to use porn as like this portal to look into, what is my porn search history showing me about myself? What's it showing me
Mhm.
that I want, desire, or need in my life? Or is it pointing me to something in my psyche that wants looking at, that wants transforming? And it's the
Mhm.
same with sex. And I think it's the same with any compulsive habit, which I've had so many of in my life and still have as well. You know, let's, like, from the offset, get rid of this like shiny idea that just because somebody's a therapist or a coach or a facilitator, that they don't struggle in their own lives. And I
Oh,
actually think
yeah.
it's much more powerful to work with a practitioner and a facilitator who can admit that they're still working through stuff and they're in the fires and in the waters working through it as well.
Mhm.
And all that,
Yeah,
just a side thought.
yeah, totally. I mean, I know a lot of I've met psychologists that I'm like, "Really? You're a psychologist?" So be like looking at like the stuff that they're doing in their life, and I'm like, "Do not look at your own self." And I understand that it is harder to look at yourself. But yeah, I agree that I think that working with people that can empathize. I mean, it's just even the stuff when I work with guys that struggle with sober sex. It's like, I've struggled with using drugs and alcohol, and so it's something that I at least can understand and can at least maybe help these guys a little bit better than if I say that also that's a struggle for me. I want to say though to the porn thing, one of the reasons or one of the ways that I look at it is when like the experience of watching porn and actual sex are very different things because like even when you're watching porn, that's not your viewpoint when you're having sex. The experience of having sex and being with a person, like what you're seeing is not, you don't see the whole shot. You're not looking at the dick going in the hole. You can't even see that, right? So it's a different experience. So I would say that like when you're watching porn, to understand that if you like end up melting the two things together and think that porn is real and this is the way that I should be having sex, but it's impossible to have that same experience with a person. And I know a lot of guys get in their head about how does this look, and it's like, hey, I'm looking you right in your face. Like all I can see is your eyes right now. I'm not seeing the things that you're in your head about. It's a different experience, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I often find that the things I find the most erotic and the sexiest and the most turn on are actually never shown in porn.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, totally.
so one of the things is when a guy is that very first moment of entry
Mm-hmm.
into my body. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking about like in porn, what they'll often do is cut to the like, oh, and it's in. But
Yeah.
I'm like that push and pull tension of that process of relaxing and opening and pulling in, and that process of the top listening with his body at my body, and am I opening or am I tightening, or am I am I about to let you in or not? And that sometimes, often for me, takes a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
I found that process and journey in incredibly sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I find most frustrating in sex in general is an impatient top who just
Mm-hmm.
wants to get in there. Because for me, it's not once you're in that's the hottest. It's the journey in. And I often
Mm-hmm.
find it's really disappointing that that process isn't shown much. I've never seen it in porn, that process.
Oh, totally.
So yeah, this sort of reality versus the fantasy, and that's what porn is, isn't it? Porn is often presenting fantasy, which is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. It's incredibly artistic and creative, and there's an art to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I will remind clients of who's like, I want to get rid of porn, I want to get porn out of my life, and that's fine if that's really your choice. But porn can be incredibly educational and can teach us so much about sex where we are not getting it anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I started one of my recent articles with, no parent comes into their gay son's room and says, "Hey, darling, let's talk about how to have anal sex." right?
Mhm.
Even like straight people aren't doing that with their kids, really.
Mhm.
Let alone talking about anal sex with your potentially gay kid. So it's like we have to go to porn sometimes because it's the only place we're finding
Well, I mean,
any
even with the
reference.
yeah, oh, totally. And I mean, even with just the how to have anal sex thing, it's like on the bigger topic of that, no parent or teacher goes in and talks about pleasure with sex, right? And that's what that is about. I mean, you're not having anal sex to get pregnant, you're having anal sex for pleasure, right? And so just that whole conversation is left out of sex when we're trying to talk to young people. So with the sex compulsion or sex addiction in your life, how did that affect like dating and connecting with guys? And were you aware that it was having a negative consequence?
Wow. So it took me a long time to realize that I had what I would consider a problem. And the problem was not the sex itself. The
Mm-hmm.
problem was with the relationship with it, what I felt I was getting from it, and why I was using it. And not only that, the whole process around the actual finding and having of sex.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a day could, my sort of search for sex could often last 9, 10, 11 hours in a day. Like,
Oh yeah.
searching, seeking, scrolling, navigating that specific type of person that I'm looking for. And then it's the language that they're using in the messages, or they've used a word that I don't like. That's put me off. I've got to move on now. Or there's like a picture that's just like there's one element of that photo that's just put me off. So now I'm not into that. And then the traveling and then the having of the sex and then the recovery and the exhaustion from having spent a whole day searching for it, traveling, having it being like pretty average, shit, crap, or absolutely amazing and intense. So that's sort of how it looked like. That's what it looked like for me. I wasn't into chemsex, but I did use a lot of poppers, which obviously have a massive effect on the body. It would, end up with headaches and,
Mm-hmm.
what have you. But
What
so
so when you said that you were like, "Oh, that's not good enough," and on to the next person, like did you find you were so it was a process that was kind of I needed to like were you looking for like a perfect quote unquote experience that you were like it wasn't just like I'll just let any guy fuck me. It was I needed to find a certain guy cuz it sounds like you were very specific about what you were looking for too.
yeah, I would say it was very obsessive and sort of OCD approach
Mhm.
to getting something exactly specific and set up in the way that I needed it to be. And what I discovered about that behavior in me through the sexological body work and the psychological work that I did around it was that I was very much the king of my world, very
Mhm.
much in control of every aspect. And that was very much linked to trauma. As a childhood, I had a very out of control manic childhood with an alcoholic father who was like quite violent and aggressive, and he had a lot of mental health issues. At the time it wasn't called that, but he was bipolar and ADHD and schizophrenic. And so you can imagine, also in a working class life with developmental trauma around having no money and just being in that world and growing up like that, there's a lot of trauma that comes with that. And so this sex addiction for me was very much about having the reins on my life, having
Mm.
complete and total control, even though ironically I was totally out of control. But what it felt like was that in this structured, specific, linear experience, I could very much have some sense of autonomy over my life, even though I didn't have autonomy over the behavior because I couldn't stop it, even though I wanted to. So these kinds of things are like this sort of Taurus energy things that sort of come in and then back in on themselves. And you think that you've got control over something and yet you're out of control. So then you try to come back into control and then you're out of control again. Um,
Mhm.
that's very much what it looked like for me. And I
Can I
know,
ask, were you looking to date any of these guys? Like, where when you were like, you spend a whole day looking for a guy, you find a guy. Was there ever a moment, or did you ever have feelings of like, oh wow, I'd like to see that a guy again? Or were you very conscious about trying to make it as least amount of real intimacy possible?
well, no, so here's the ironic thing with somebody like what I was doing, which was having pretty anonymous sex hookups. There's also this other side of me that's incredibly emotional and very romantic and passionate. And so what I was actually looking for was intimacy and connection, but
Mhm.
through the act of the physical only.
Mhm.
Right. So sex is really powerful at making us believe we're having an emotional experience, even though there aren't actually any emotions involved in that anonymous hookup. The
Mhm.
feeling is very uh is fueled with so much brain chemistry that it feels
Mhm.
like a very powerful emotional experience. And so the other thing that I discovered was that I actually was really looking for romance and intimacy and passion and connection, which I did get sometimes, but that would just be down to luck. And then, yeah, there definitely were guys that I sort of pursued. I was like, oh wow, actually, you know, there's something there. There's actually a spark there. And so I would, yeah, try to pursue that in a more meaningful way. And sometimes that would work out and sometimes it wouldn't. But yeah, I probably, these things are very complex because you can say, oh, I'm somebody that's looking for romance and connection and passion. But then there's also a part of me that blocks myself from actually receiving that and finding that. But then,
Mhm.
and then there will be another part that is another that's functioning a different part of you that wants something else. So I think we have to be really careful when we say, well, I'm the kind of person that, fill in the blank. Because as soon as you say that, there's often another part of you that's completely the opposite. And I think
Mhm.
human beings, we really want to simplify ourselves into, well, I'm the kind of person that wants this in my life, and I want that with a man, and I want this in sex. But we're made up of so many opposing different parts that often make it very difficult for us when we try to just um, categorize ourselves. So I tend to now wake up every day and see who I am that day. Like,
Mm.
so right now, I'm back in like my sex era. I'm really loving having sex, and they don't need to be my partner. They don't need to be my boyfriend. But just last week, I had ended a huge, deep, big, very profound and powerful love affair with a guy that we really fell for each other, but it sort of was a forbidden love because he's in an open marriage, and they hadn't planned on becoming romantically intimate with other people. But anyway, we fell for each other. I feel like it was love. So last week I was in that zone, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love to be the kind of person that could just say, "Oh, I just want a relationship, or I just want to be able to hook up." But I morph and change and shift from minute to minute sometimes in a day. It depends on the weather, the season, the temperature, my mood, how much coffee I've had. I don't know. And I think
Oh, yeah.
actually this is a really important topic for all human beings to think about. But gay men is, it's like we're trying to define ourselves so specifically and so clearly in ways that I think actually as human beings we are indefinable and unspecifiable, if that's a word.
I think it's just there's more nuance to things, right? I think that, I could say right now too that I'm like, oh, I really like want to be romantically involved and stuff, but then I could go out on a Saturday night and get fucked in a bathroom, and be like, oh, well, that's what I was feeling that night too. And it doesn't mean that like all these things are they like you said, right? Like it shifts every day sometimes and it can shift when you meet someone new. I think to, like kind of on this like sex addiction topic, for me, I have an issue. What I realized is I get addicted to men, but on the emotional level. So I have to be really careful with when I feel a spark because I'm like, oh my God, that guy is so great. I can't stop thinking about him. And then I'm like, oh, what is that? And I learned this a few years ago when I dated this guy for like a month. I was dating him for a month and he went away for a week. And when he went away, I like went back home and I was like, oh, I feel so like anxious and I feel so like not okay. And I was like, I feel the same way of like when I want to drink, like where I'm like, oh, I feel really like, oh, like just there's something off and I need to calm down. I was like, that's how I feel. And I was like, oh my God, I'm addicted to him because he's gone now for a week. And I'm like, I don't have my supply for a week. So my body's going like, what are you doing? You need that guy around. That guy gives you joy. It makes you feel good. And so I think that like, I'm aware because I still continued to do it with like a couple more guys after that. So I didn't change the behavior. But I see now that I'm like, I was in a relationship last year for a year and a half and that ended in like June, April, kind of. It was like a 3-month breakup. And then, but when I was like, I was doing the same thing in that situation. And I'm like, okay, I need to be single because actually my life has gone so much better in the last few months since I was like, okay, I'm alone. I lost the drug that I was using. And I really had to sit with myself and be okay with being alone. And I was like, okay. And it was basically, it was like doing like a detox of like off alcohol or drugs and being like, your body's going through this withdrawal. But then eventually, like my body learned, it took a week, but my body learned that I was like, wow, you're okay. You're okay. You don't need that person because you just spent the last week alone. And I cried through it and it was hard. But I was like, there was a moment that my body learned I was okay. And so now I'm kind of like, I made a decision that I was like, I cannot enter another committed relationship for 1 year. I'm also not drinking right now. And I was like, 1 year, do 1 year of these things, but also no commitment of a relationship for a year and then decide on it. And it's not that I'm like fearful or I don't even know if I want to be in a relationship again, but it might not work for me in that sense, in that way of having one person, a committed relationship, even if it's open or not. I might not be the type of person that my nervous system can handle being with one person. Even right now, I'm trying to be like, I still want sex. I still want intimacy with men. But I'm noticing how, like, when I know that it's just about being with this guy right now in this moment, and whether that's just like emotionally talking to him or having great sex, there's a feeling of like, all that matters is this moment and the intimacy that we're getting now. And the thoughts in my head don't go, this could be my boyfriend. Oh my God, I think I'm falling in love with him. I want to hang out with him again. Like that, I'm like, that's not there right now. It's more so, this guy's just so fucking cute. I just want to hold him. And then be like, yeah, you can do that. And you can do that and still leave the guy at the end of the fucking or the session, whatever, and be like, I'm so okay with myself. I can experience that and still be by myself and be okay.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I really resonate with so much of what you just said with something that I've
Mm-hmm.
just been through with the guy that I just mentioned that we couldn't be together.
Yeah, can I ask how did that feel when you were like, this isn't working out and it has to end?
So
How
this,
did you
so
handle that?
yeah, so the thing that you were describing with that heady, obsessive fantasy thinking is, so there's a word for it called limerence,
Yeah.
and which is actually a word that a lot of people haven't heard of because I've been using
Mm-hmm.
the word and so many people have gone limerence. What's that mean? But I think it's something that's coming more into the.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it more and more online, but it's probably just my algorithm
Yeah.
now. I'm getting all of this like anxious attachment content and stuff about limerence and ADHD
Mm-hmm.
and love and romance. Yeah.
But before we, yeah, what it was, so to just say to listeners, what is limerence?
So limerence is just basically something that happens to you that feels in a romantic sense or a sexual sense very obsessive, that you cannot stop thinking and ruminating about the person, whether it's in sort of a fantastical way. So with this guy, he was in an open marriage. Their agreement is that they can have sex with other people, but romantically and intimately they hadn't really discussed that because it hadn't happened before. So I fell for this guy. He fell for me. We had this 2-week whirlwind love affair. And the limerent part is that I go into this fantastical, obsessive fantasy world of like, maybe he's going to divorce his husband for me and he's going to like move to this
Yeah.
country and this is like feeling really real, right? Like I'm not
Did you
not
guys,
aware
yeah.
at that moment that this is fantastical obsessive thinking.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, like, did you guys have conversations that he was going to leave his husband, or is this all in your head?
So it's in my head. It works out that it's in his head as well. But these guys have been married for 8 years, so it's very complicated. So in
Mm-hmm.
reality, I don't actually want to be with somebody that is married to somebody else. I don't want to be with somebody that could potentially be going through a divorce, that lives in
Mm-hmm.
another country. But when you write, and so I had to write down,
Yeah.
which I would get a client to do, the actual reality. So you write down the fantasy on the left side. We're going to get married. We're going to have a business empire together. And this is what I was thinking. He's going to get divorced. He's going to move to London. We're going to get a place together. He gets on so well with my 2 dogs. Oh my God, he's perfect for me. And then we write down the reality. I have zero interest in supporting another human being through going through a messy divorce. I have zero interest in being on the other side of a psychic attack from somebody's divorcee who now
Mm-hmm.
has a vendetta against me. I have zero interest in somebody that doesn't live in this country. It's like the reality is like boom, boom, boom. But
Mm-hmm.
limerence is so powerful that it will have you believe that this fantasy is possible. And so it turns out that he's having the same limerent obsessive fantasy thoughts as me. And so I catch it. I'm like, okay, this isn't good. Like this isn't
Mm-hmm.
healthy and this isn't fair on either of us and on his
Yeah.
husband as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I am a person, I will say about my own self, of integrity. Like
Yeah.
I always want to try to do things the right way, the good way,
Mm-hmm.
the kindest, the most loving way. And so I catch this after 2 weeks, because it didn't start that way. It sort of built into that sort of intense space. And so we meet for coffee, and I say, well, he says to me, actually, I think I need to cool off because I'm thinking obsessively about you. And I'm like, me too. I think we're in limerence. And he goes, what's limerence? And I explain to him, and he's like, oh my God, yes, that's what I'm in. And what's really painful about limerence is that in many ways, there is real truth to those feelings. Like there was real love there. There is real love there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I get a little teary thinking about it because
Oh.
it feels so unfair to be given something so beautiful, so true and so real that in a slightly different timeline, just that little bit to the left, like we're each other's person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the really crazy thing about it is that his garden, where he's staying for 2 months, backs onto my garden. Like it is literally a Hollywood movie setup. Like I can see his lights on or off from my
Yeah.
kitchen window. I
Yeah.
know if he's home or not. Like it's really
Yeah.
difficult. So I have this conversation with him and I say, hey, I think we're in limerence. It's not healthy. And even though what's here so much is real, we actually need to go and have some space to let this brain chemistry and what you were saying about having that week off, that 2 weeks, and you go, okay, let me
Mm-hmm.
just come back to my center. Let me come back to my world. Let me come back to who I am and what I have going on here, that I'm totally fine without this person in my
Mm-hmm.
life, even though it's great with them in it. And actually for me, it's been 6 weeks and I'm still not, I've still not
Mm-hmm.
moved through it fully. And I think it's a mix of ADHD, brain chemistry, trauma, and then just real love at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. So it's very complex. And to work through these things, I think you really, really have to be the type of person that is willing to dive in, analyze, to look, to wade through the fucking shit, to admit your messy parts and your own shadow parts. Like I had to admit that there was a shadow part of me that wanted him to divorce his husband and just cast his husband aside to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my heart, that's not my truth, but that there's definitely that shadow side. And I had to like own up to that. I had to admit that. I had to be uncomfortable with that like icky, unkind part of myself. And I think that's why for a lot of people out there, this it's really difficult to work through these things because it's very, very hard to confront those parts of yourself,
Yeah.
to admit those parts of yourself. And also to be so tender and so vulnerable with other people that you're dating or that I was not embarrassed to tell him, I think I'm falling in love and I don't know what to do. I feel
Mm-hmm.
so insecure and I feel not good enough because you're not choosing me. And I was really just so honest about all of that stuff, which he loved that about me. It actually brought us closer because, when you share your insecurities and your vulnerabilities, from what happens is the other person goes, me too. I'm also
Mm-hmm.
insecure about my body, or I also feel unlovable, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so, rather than actually putting somebody off or turning somebody off, it can actually be a bonding thing to share that vulnerability and that insecurity.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's funny when you say like admitting all these things. I see so many, especially gay men. I see like with this limerence thing, like a lot of that turning into codependency. So like I know a lot of gay men that I'm like, if you lost that partner of yours, you'd be fucked. Like this partner, I can tell is your source of joy and everything because you do everything with this person, and it happened really fast too. Like so, people in general will do this, right? Where they're in limerence and they move really fast because they aren't like they're believing, which yes, the feelings are real and stuff, but it's like you don't know anybody really that well in like a month or two. And I always say give it 6 to 18 months because like that spark feeling, that's like the average time that lasts. So like before you make any big decisions, like maybe just let it ride that year and a half out and see where you're at then and make a decision because it could be real, but it might also not be. And I
Yeah.
think like even when I was like the guy that I mentioned that I dated for a month and like couldn't stop thinking about him, like even when he broke up with me, like I knew when you said write out all the fantasy and the real stuff, there was so much real stuff that I was like, this guy is not good for you. But like it was like an addiction where I was like, oh, but I and when he broke up with me, I was like, I need to get him back. So I need to change stuff about me to make myself better to get him back. And this was a guy that I dated for 2 months. And I was like, okay, I didn't really heal the trauma in that situation, whatever was going on, because I was still like, why won't you love me? And like, so there was still this, oh, well, I'll just change myself and become better. I'll become more of this person. Then one day he's going to walk back in my life and be like, what was I thinking? And so
So
like,
that's what limerence does to you. Like,
yeah. And I
it
just,
creates this fantasy idea that, and then they'll realize what they've lost, and then they'll, just declare their undying love for me, and we can live in this fantasy. But I love what you said about giving it space and time before you make a decision, because here is what I have learned in such the hard way, is that you will not know if a relationship or another human being has potential until you deal with a conflict.
oh yeah, totally.
So you can show your best sparkly, shiny self. You can admire all the best, shiny, sparkly elements of another human being, and that's wonderful. But until you deal with a conflict, you cannot know if there is potential with that human being, how you deal with conflict, because that's where the meat of any relationship is laying. Like, that's where all of the potential for growth and healing and transformation and expansion into a relationship really is. And I never trust somebody now in dating if for those first dates they're only showing me their best self. I don't trust it. And so it's not that I won't date them, it's that I will
Yeah.
start digging. I will start digging for, so what makes you anxious? What makes you insecure? What are
Yeah.
you insecure about? What are you vulnerable about? Like, what worries you? What scares you? And, so I'll sort of start digging and poking around for the more shadowy stuff, because I'm like, that's sort of what I'm interested in getting to know and see. And of course, I adore people's gifts and skills and talents, and I love to help support those and elicit those. But I'm also equally interested in, and also sharing my own stuff as well. But that's a bit of a balance as well, because you don't, like, I want to share what I'm vulnerable and insecure about as early as possible, but I also don't want to like trauma dump and be like,
Yeah.
this is my life story, like straight off the bat, which is a huge mistake I used to make in the past, because I thought that was connection. So it's a fine balance to, I think, show, what makes you insecure, what you're vulnerable about, without sort of giving the full, psychotherapeutic lowdown on your psyche.
Totally. And I think it like even with like friendships and those types of relationships, I think a lot of, especially men, that there isn't that testing of vulnerability to see things. So like a lot of times everything stays on the surface with friends. And then it's like, well, we've never even gone deeper, or you like, as a lot of men who struggle with admitting that they're struggling will like not even say anything. So like you're not even giving people the opportunity to try that. And with the time thing, like I'm trying this right now where I'm just in this time in my life where like after that last breakup I stopped drinking. A lot of things have shifted, and a lot of friends had to shift from that too, because I was like, my lifestyle with drinking and partying was the connection with these friends, and now I really want deeper, meaningful relationships, romantically or not a boyfriend, but I want to have sex and I want intimacy with men, but with friends as well. And I'm seeing how like it takes time, because you can't just come out of the bat of like meeting a group of people or meeting these friends, which I'm doing right now, and be like, you guys are great, be my friend, I want to hang out with you more. It's like you kind of just have to be like, hey, do you want to go for a coffee sometime? And be like, oh, okay, yeah, we went for coffee. Oh, that was really great conversation. We should hang out again. Is this person actually like making an effort to be like, hey, what are you up to next week? Do you want to hang out? And like, I'm starting to see like, oh, okay, I'm being vulnerable, but I'm also testing people out to be like, hey, are you going to show up for me? Like, for example, there was even this one guy, and this is in friends, like with friendships. There was one guy where I just like messaged him and it took him like a day to message back. And I was like, okay, maybe like he was just had a busy day. And then he sent a message back, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, what are you up to next? I can't remember what he said, but like, what are you up to next week? Another day goes by, and I was like, fuck this. And I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do a day long to message. I was like, this, I can already tell this is like not going to be the relationship I want, because I do need someone who's going to just be like, hey, do you want to hang out next week? Yes. Or like, do you want to hang out? Let's plan a time. Not just, yeah, we should grab a coffee sometime. I'll let you know. You know, like, I'm like, I need actually concrete people being like, hey, I want to show up for you. I want to spend time with you. I'd like to have sex with you. Let's do it Tuesday. Like, I'm like, I need that type of person in my life. And so that's what I'm figuring out. And also realizing that, like, when I do get rejected or when things aren't working out, I'm doing really well at being able to sit with the disappointment in it and be like, oh, I made a vulnerable bid for connection with that guy and he turned me down. And I feel disappointed, maybe a little bit stupid even, because like I've had this feeling like, oh, I guess I got the messages wrong or whatever. But then sitting with that and being like, it's not about me. You can sit in the disappointment in it and be like, oh, I feel kind of icky because that was uncomfortable. Now I feel awkward. But be like, just feel that. And I let myself feel that for like a day. And the next day I wake up and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And actually, I'll move on from that situation. But you have to feel the like, it's okay to feel the disappointment from it, because now I know that I'm like, okay, if I go to the next guy and make a bid for connection and he says no and rejects me, well, I've done this before. I know I'll be okay. I just need to take a day of feeling kind of shitty. And that's what happens for me. And it's just like dealing with the when it comes up and I get rejected, and I can do that.
Yeah. I think it's really inspiring what you're saying, because I think it's really rare for gay men to be this way that you're describing how you're being. Um, and I think a lot of gay men listening to this, and a lot of gay men in the world, wish that they could be more like what you're describing. And I think they really want to be more like that. And we're so scared of that rejection that it prevents so many potential friendships, so much potential platonic friendships, even. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
really think about my life. You know, I'm 42. I was 42 last week. So I've had
Oh,
a
happy
life.
birthday.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
feel so great getting older, because like I've had a life, right? I've lived
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
a life as a gay man. I'm in my 40s. And I look back and I think, wow, how many wonderful potential friendships have I missed out on because I internally swiped left
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just in my brain because, oh, they're not my type or that's not my person. And just that immediate thing that we tend to do, which I've really done a lot of work at trying to unravel in my neural circuitry. And even like, it doesn't even have to be platonic friendship. It could just be, did I just miss out on like a really fucking great conversation with somebody who was inspiring, who had a story to tell, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
some old dude in a gay bar that lived through the AIDS crisis and could have just told me a story that just like moved me into love and appreciation. And I just went, oh, it's not my person. Like, I don't want to talk to him. Like, you know? And I just think how much we lose out on by not just giving that smile or responding with, hey, yeah, I'll say hi to you and yeah, I'll have a drink. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they are hitting on you and you don't fancy them, maybe that's okay as well. Like, you can just have a chat and a connection, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
gay men, queer people, LGBTQ people stand around in bars and clubs. You can see it. It's so obvious. The eyes are like doing this the whole time. And it's like, oh, I sort of like him and I like him and I'm going to pretend that I haven't seen him and he's going to pretend that he hasn't seen me. And we do this
Yeah.
stupid dance of avoidance where all
Yeah.
we want to do is connect. And it's actually really a huge part of my work with my project. It's called Pleasure Medicine, and it's London's only ecstatic dance for GBTQ plus men. And it's a connection workshop and an ecstatic dance. We do it every 2 weeks. It's been going for 7 months, and it's attracting a real returning community. And in the first hour of this workshop, I do a collection of authentic relating and connection games, and that are really designed to help us slow down, break down the walls, melt the masks, to just meet the person in front of us beyond sexual connection or fancying somebody. And so you've got young guys connecting with older guys. You've got all body types, all backgrounds, all cultures, all ethnicities. And it's so incredible what you see happen in the space. I physically see shoulders go, I see eyes soften and sparkle, smiles spread across faces between people that probably in any other context wouldn't give each other the time of day,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even notice each other in any other social context or on an app. And
Mm-hmm.
there's these exquisite and beautiful friendships and brotherhoods and relationships and sexual connections and intimate connections as well. It's like we don't have to kill that part. It's like we don't have to kill that part because it's there. It's always going to be there. It's like let's open it out. Let's blossom it open to all of the other expressions that we're just really fucking hungry for as gay men. I've written an article about this, the importance of platonic gay friendship that I personally find so difficult to find and cultivate because there's this assumption that if you invite another gay man out for coffee, that it's got to be something more. It's got to be something sexual, or you have to fancy them, or it's because you want to be their boyfriend or whatever. I think platonic gay friendship is so important, and having that community and having that connection. And when people talk about, I hear it a lot, the word the gay community or the queer community. I actually have never experienced the community piece because for me, communities love each other, they like each other, they help each other, they support each other, they lift each other up, they help each other to expand and to be more of themselves. And I don't think I've not experienced any queer or gay, in quotes, community that actually does that. There are bars and clubs where queer people go, but that doesn't make it a community. That just makes it a space where we gather. So I think we've got
Mm-hmm.
this mixed up idea that spaces where we gather are communities. They're not. Community isn't a physical thing, it's an emotional, psychological, spiritual, energetic thing, right? So
Well,
that's what I'm trying to create with pleasure medicine is an actual real community, which is a space
yeah.
where we are really growing, really learning, really loving and accepting and also challenging each other and calling each other out where we're getting things wrong and messing things up and then hopefully leaning into what that can teach us about ourselves so that we can be better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another article that I've written, which is what you've just described about the way you're trying to be in the world, and which is also something you've really inspired me to want to be more like that as well. I've written an article called "Be the Gay You Want to See in the World." So
Mm-hmm.
that famous quote, "Be the change you want to see."
Mm-hmm.
I love that you've just described being that person that's putting yourself on the line in order to cultivate something that you want in your life. You've got to be that person. If you want that connection and intimacy, you have to be the one to risk the rejection. And that's
Yeah,
really
totally.
hard. I have so much admiration for you that you're doing that.
Well, I want to say it's because, okay, so I want to say a few things about what you just said about community and what I've noticed about myself and the showing up in the world is that, first of all, like the way I think about community is about belonging. I mean, Brene Brown has this whole thing about the difference between belonging and fitting in, right? Belonging means that you get to show up as yourself, and fitting in means that you change to conform with the group. And I think a lot of groups are fitting in and are asking people to, hey, you're welcome to be a part of the group, but like a lot of times it's like you gotta like look, act like the same things, all that bullshit. Community is like one of the things that I'll look at spaces and be like even if it's just like I do a lot of running groups and I like running groups and I'm in a good one right now that I really like, but whether it's like volleyball or gay dodgeball or whatever it is, a gay yoga, I don't know, or just a regular yoga class. But I look at like who are the people in this class and how diverse are they, or in the group? How diverse are the people in the group? Because it'll give me some sort of feeling that, okay, wow, there's a lot of diversity in this group. That must mean that people are like allowing everyone to come in as they are. It's not just 20 gay men all in a picture, usually all the same, look the same body type, same race, same all this stuff, right? It's like, okay, there's not a lot of diversity in this group. So I feel like I'm going to stick out a lot if I feel like if I feel different, right? The thing that I learned about this, about showing up as myself, and the thing that helped was when I had that breakup, I really was alone. I was like, I don't have secure friendships. I don't have consistent friendships. I don't have anyone in my life that is making sure I'm okay, caring about me, willing to go put any effort into my friendship, to know that like even the breakup was this great example of being like, I'm going through a hard time and people know I'm going through a hard time. People are not checking in on me. And I wasn't like going into this place of, oh my God, I have no friends, poor me. But I was like, this is my actual situation. Like, I have friends and people there for me, but like, it kind of was like the thought I had was like, if I died in my apartment, it might take a few days before someone finds out I'm dead. And I was like, that's actually a truth that is making me feel, wow, the loneliness is because I actually am alone. Like, these things are real. And so what I decided is that I was like, okay, the reason why that you're alone is because you've been kind of shape shifting yourself to fit in with different people into relationships. Cause like the intention of that was, don't leave me. I need this person to stick around. So I'll just try to make sure that you're comfortable and I'll change things about myself. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm fucking alone anyways now. So why don't I just be myself? And myself is, I'm an incredibly emotional, vulnerable person who likes feeling and likes meaningful stuff. I always say this thing about when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I used to watch Oprah. I mean, I still watch Oprah sometimes, but I used to watch Oprah, and I remember like if she did a show that was like home makeovers, I'd be like, yeah, I don't care. But if it was like, we're going to talk to the mom who drove her kids into the lake and killed all of them and how she got through that, I would be like, yeah, that's my shit. I want to see that. I want to feel whatever that feeling is or that experience. I want to empathize with that woman. That's me. And I know that's me. And that's the thing that I've been the most scared to show people because it has been too much for a lot of people, especially men. But I was like, I have no friends or boyfriend or anyone. Why don't I just fucking be that? And so, like, for me, dancing is a way that I feel without having to be like, I'm feeling all this, da da da. So I was like, okay, that's the content that I'm going to make because I dance every single day. So I started just posting videos of me dancing. And I was like, this is me full on authentic. This is me every day. This is not me like performing. This is like, I mean, it is a bit of a performance on showing people, but this is me. And what I started to realize is like, it's taken some time, but I've started to see the people that have like started to show up for me and like me for me. And because I'm not drinking, I'm showing up into these spaces, not partying. So people aren't like, oh, we like Vance because he's such a fucking good time. It's like they like me as sober Vance that shows up and is just me asking emotional questions or being all sensitive or talking about crying to Lord, the singer.
Mhm.
And so, like, I get to be all that and I feel safer with these people because I'm showing them and they're sticking around and they're actually liking what I'm showing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what like a lot of gay men or a lot of people, I should just say, I think a lot of people do this is like, it is really scary to start being yourself because people will walk away and people will not be okay with it. Like the thing about rejection, it doesn't feel good. It's going to happen, but like if you betray yourself so you don't have to deal with the disappointment and the rejection, then you're never going to actually get the intimacy. Like you actually have to be okay with like, yeah, I'm going to be myself and I'm going to be vulnerable. Yeah, some people are going to make me feel like shit about it or whatever, but this is all knowledge and it's not personal. It's just some people don't have the capacity for you and that's okay. But if you never show people all of that, then like you're never going to know who actually wants to be there for you.
Mm-hmm. And whilst we're on the topic of Oprah, she actually he describes it as some people only have the capacity for a pint, whereas you
Mm.
are a gallon,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And that's okay. If that person cannot hold you, be with you, accept you, you let it
Yeah.
go. But it's so
But
in,
to that, I like if that happens, right? Like that goes back to me being like, feel the disappointment, feel the pain, the grief, or whatever is coming up in that moment. Like it's not about being like, oh, I'm so resilient that I just don't give a fuck.
yeah, that's really key with going back to the sex addiction. And I think what a lot of gay men experience is that we don't know how to feel those difficult emotions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, we don't let ourselves feel sad at loss, or we don't let ourselves feel disappointed that that guy didn't want us, or we don't let ourselves feel shame and embarrassment, depression or sorrow or despair or grief that is actually within us through developmental trauma of growing
Mm-hmm.
up gay or queer and feeling different and on the outskirts to everybody else. And so what we do then is we jump from hook up to hook up to hook up to relationship to relationship to club to drug, to drink, to house party, to different social groups where we're trying to fit in rather than belong, because we won't let ourselves just stop to slow down to feel the pain
Mm-hmm.
that's there.
Yeah.
And that was the only
To
reason we stay on the hamster wheel. But I'll speak
mm,
for myself. That's the reason I
yeah.
stayed on the hamster wheel of the compulsive sex. So I know now if I go back to a compulsive sex pattern, which I'm very, very capable of doing very easily, now I know there's something that wants to be felt that you're not comfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to this very familiar habit that makes you feel something different, more intense, and it distracts you. So why
Mm-hmm.
don't we? I'm still learning how to do this. To sit in discomfort, I think, is a lifelong spiritual practice that is never.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever just get it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
sometimes something comes along is more painful than you've ever felt. Like this thing with this guy, it's not more pain than I've ever felt, but I think it's the most uncomfortable that I've ever felt
Mm-hmm.
in terms of love,
Oh
sex,
yeah.
and running. And it was so strong and intoxicating and sad and disappointing.
Mm.
And yeah, I noticed I went straight. I was like, right, I'm getting grinder. Get that
Yeah.
profile back up, get some attention, share some pictures, get a dopamine hit. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's put a pause on that and just really cry.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's like when I had the breakup, like I cried for like a week, but I knew I was like retrospect now, I was not dealing with the breakup I had before that. That was like a year and a half, and I wasn't dealing with a lot of stuff of like the pandemic and a lot of loss of friends and stuff. And so when I was crying in that week, I knew it wasn't just about the last boyfriend. I was like, I am letting out 5 years worth of stuff that I have been avoiding by being with men and being in these relationships or just drinking and like not dealing with any of that. And so, like, yeah, that week was fucking hard. I was like laying on the floor crying, so overwhelmed. But like when I got through that and was able to be like, okay, that took a fucking week. But
Yeah.
now when I'm like having these other vulnerable rejections and that's happening, it's like a little, okay, I just have to deal with this for like a day. And then I
Yeah.
have the little disappointment. I'm usually not crying. I'm usually just being like, I just feel kind of down and like feel down then. And then so it's like doing these little micro fixes, not fixes, but like micro healings where I'm like, you got to feel the thing and get through it. But if I keep making sure that I'm like staying present and being like, what are you feeling today? There's something going on because you maybe like you're in your head or you're upset at this person, but maybe you just feel hurt by them. And it's like just trying to be like sit with that discomfort.
What you're saying is also making me think and reminding me how innocent we all are in terms of um like when you said I hadn't dealt with the relationship before and I was releasing stuff from over the last 5 years, I'd take it further and say we're carrying a lifetime of
Mm.
stuff inside of us,
Yeah.
and we've been fed so many tools to avoid feeling, and so many very effective drugs that numb and help us to avoid act
Mm-hmm.
media. If you're using it in a certain way, it could be porn, TV. I have a girlfriend, gal pal, a
Mm-hmm.
friend as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Yeah.
who has a really serious problem with TV series. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and it's really problematic. So it doesn't look damaging. It's not like she's drinking a bottle of wine every night or taking drugs
Mhm.
every day or running around having chemsex. It's TV.
Yeah.
And it's causing her great, great, great depression. A lot of she is avoiding relationships and intimacy with friends. She is
Mhm.
re-watching the same series over and over. She is engulfed in this fantasy world. And it's like, you know, we've been fed so many strategies that help us and we've been taught and conditioned to use these things
Mhm.
and so I think that one of the greatest, most effective things we can do on a healing journey is to feel our emotions. And I always say to my clients that because a lot of them think, oh, we're going to get to this end point with a neat bow wrapped up on top and I'm going to be healed.
Mhm.
And so I'd always say, your pain doesn't want to be healed, it wants to be held.
Mhm.
And so all that pain wants was for you to hold it and feel it and let it be known that it's there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then it will do with itself what it wants to do. So, you know, when you say I cried on the floor for a week, and then that week was over and you didn't feel that pain as much anymore, like what happened to that pain? Where did it go? Like it's not a thing that you do that to, right? It's like
Mhm.
how does it resolve itself? It's sort of like we've got this emotional immune system that only functions really well when we sit in stillness and allow ourselves to just fully experience what's there. I sound like a guru that like is like got this down and perfect. I do not by any stretch. I realize sometimes I sound like much more of an expert than I am. So I this is a concept that I try to put into my own life. I by no means have it perfect. And sometimes I go off the rails and I get it all wrong. And my life's work is to bring myself back to that place,
Mhm.
back to that place, back to that place. And so I suppose my message really to anyone listening is that I don't think we ever get there. Like there's no destination on a healing journey. There's just a constant, I suppose, a constant desire and commitment to just coming back to that place of truth in yourself and allow, you know, when you go off the rails and you get it wrong and you've gone back to patterns, it's not that there's something wrong with you, you're not broken, you know, it's usually that there's something in your inner self that's guiding you to something more, you know. So if I
Mhm.
go off the rails and I go back to those addictive patterns, I'm like, okay, there's just something here that wants to be seen, so let's do the work.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even for like the healing that I did with this last breakup, crying on the floor for a week, that I was like, it was so the situation. I don't even think I could teach people. Like, I couldn't say to you, oh, this is what I did, so this is what you can do.
There's
There
no
was
step.
things of it, like being a somatic practitioner. I understood I was like, there is like a more trauma response-y thing that's happening right now. So I was aware that I was like, it's not just these situations happening right now. There's something deeper that's going on. Just let yourself feel. And I was like even laying on the floor is a somatic tool of like laying on a hard surface grounds you, right? And so I was like, I was able to kind of like coach myself through it and be like, this is what you need to do. But I'll say like the things that triggered the whole event. Like I was like, it was this certain guy that broke up with me. And it was also like, it was Lord's album coming out and being like resonating with that. There was a lot of stuff that just like happened all at once that triggered all of it. It wasn't like I was like, I want to heal. Here, I will do this. And so it was like, all this stuff happened. Like that wasn't the intention of what that week was. I wasn't about like, if I just do this, I'll heal. And so I was like, it was so unique to me. But what I would say to people, what I've learned is like, my healing or learning about myself and gaining that self-awareness has come from taking risks and being intimate with other people and learning that like when I had that breakup, not going into the like childhood trauma of, oh, no one loves me because this guy doesn't want to be with me, and going into like, what am I learning in this moment? What did that relationship teach me? Why am I so wanting to be with a man that doesn't want to be with me? Like, what
Mm.
knowledge is that saying to me? Like, so, but I've learned so much about myself from my relationships, friendship or romantic, and family. But like taking the risk to be vulnerable with people and being intimate with people, even if it goes really badly, you can always learn stuff about yourself and maybe even grow a little bit through that, if that makes sense.
And 100%, a friend of mine said to me today, you can, you know, you can lose people, you can lose health, you can lose money, you can lose almost anything in life. But she said to me, but never lose the lesson. I
Yeah.
love that. That's one thing that we can always open ourselves to. Like, what can I learn from this experience? What am I being shown about myself? And how can I expand into being more of my true self because of this? And so I love that. You can lose
Yeah.
almost anything in life, but let's never lose the lesson.
And what Oprah always says is nothing is ever wasted. So if you do go into something, you can always learn something from it.
I really believe that, but I also really believe you have to be the type of person that wants to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have, sometimes, sometimes at my lowest ebb, when I've just been so broken and just like, do I have to learn more lessons? Like my life seems to just be built for transformation, spiritual learning and growth. And it's just like, do I have to go through more? Like, pain to like, can I just not get there? And sometimes I honestly have prayed, God, please just make me a basic bitch. Like, make me the person that just doesn't care about any of this shit. Like, give me a 9 to 5 job and a TV dinner and a partner that goes, "My darling, what do you want? Should we have fish on Fridays?" And just give me that life. Because I think sometimes it just looks so much easier. But I'm not built for that. I'm built for the fucking mess and the turmoil, and then the exquisite liberation and ecstasy and expansion that comes with that, and then inevitably the dive into the next bit of mess. And so I've learned actually to really appreciate that life that I have, and not to say anything bad about the other life at all. We've all got our journeys and the things that we want, and this life seems to be mine for then help others as well. I suppose go through the fires and then help others through the fires.
Totally. I mean, that's like, I feel the exact same way. I wasn't like 18 in high school being like, I want to grow, so I'm going to take the most amount of risk possible. It just kind of feels like that's the way it happened. I think I was a lot more naive and ignorant in my 20s. So I think I just was like, I didn't even think about consequences. I just was like, yeah, I'll go do this. Yeah, I'll go move across the country. Yeah, I'll go to film school. Yeah, I'll do porn. I don't know. It was like, I don't think, and now I think I'm a little bit more cautious, but I think I still am like, yeah, if I'm not feeling like I'm growing or being seen in the situation I'm in and the moment I'm in, then I'm like, there's like this angst to be like, I need more. I need to like, I'm not comfortable in this space that feels almost too safe, too boxed in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm really inspired by that as well. Yeah, and I totally
Yeah.
resonate with this. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and just saying yes to these crazy decisions. And I do think this personality type is going to be responsible for moving the world forward in a more positive way. This sort of more dynamic way of being, this sort of multi-potentialite way of thinking and creating. I think it's definitely going to be the personality type that that helps humanity move over this period of really dark times that we've been going through.
Yeah. Okay, well, I could talk about this forever, but one more question for you since we got to wrap up. But what are you most excited for in your life right now?
I'm most excited about what I'm creating with my community, my pleasure medicine community here in London, and my new event called Slow Dating Plus, which is a space to meet men without the masks, where you also learn to date, relate, and communicate. And so I'm really excited about these live events that I'm creating for GBTQ plus men to come and experience something that shouldn't be, but feels really revolutionary and new and fresh and unique. A space to come and be in kindness, care, connection, and community in a way that is actually really real and authentic. That's based in joy and delight and playfulness and depth and creativity. And I think there's something so exciting about it being in person with the bodies in the space. And the way that I facilitate these events is with real playfulness and light and joy. It's something in my life that feels probably the most spiritually aligned and most purposeful and from my heart and soul that I've ever done in my life. So that is what I'm really excited about.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm like really happy and glad that you're doing this for other guys, as I know it is much needed work and it's much needed community and connection for men. So thank you for what you're doing. And thanks for coming on and talking to me. This is great.
Oh, thank you for having me. I will talk and talk and talk about gay shit
Yeah.
forever and ever.
Yeah.
Love sex, eating, ships. I just love it. And you're doing such a great job to have people on and speak and share and get these messages out into the world. It's amazing to you. You're inspiring. So much of what you've shared today has inspired me as well to go and be a better gay.
Aw, thanks. Oh, well, thanks for doing this.